and thank you, Minister White, for taking this topical issues motion. It's always good when a minister with direct responsibility for an issue actually comes into the House and faces the music, so to speak. When the centralisation of medical card applications was announced, the HSE and indeed this government promised that it would result in a more streamlined, more efficient and ultimately, as a result of that, a more compassionate system where people's needs would be responded to quickly, directly and compassionately. Unfortunately, from what I'm hearing from my constituents on the ground in Clare, that simply isn't happening. And it's not happening when it comes to the most vulnerable people in our society, or among the most vulnerable people in our society, children with disabilities. I've heard numerous stories of medical cards having been withdrawn, medical cards in respect of children with disabilities having been withdrawn. Furthermore, the parents of those children only found out that the actual medical card had been withdrawn when they showed up in pharmacies and to get drugs or pharmaceuticals that they regularly obtain for their children, to find out that that the medical card was no longer valid. They contacted the centralised unit and they're told, well, fill in an application form and it'll be dealt with. Very little compassion, very little understanding of the very difficult situation that they find themselves in, and certainly not what this government promised, and not what I would have expected as somebody who regularly goes through these voting lobbies and supports this government. I suppose there's questions, and I don't intend to take up a very long period of time, but the questions, specific questions that I would like answered are: how many medical cards have been cut from children with special needs, in particular autism and/or cancer, this year? Have any of these cards been conducted without, or been cancelled without conducting a statutory review? In other words, have they been simply cancelled on a whim and then told, well, sure, if you really deserve the card, there you go and reapply? And is there a deliberate policy of cancelling medical cards to save money and then making people reapply and prove that they should have had the medical card in the first place? And finally, if you know, and I appreciate that you might not have the answer to this, but how many medical cards are subsequently restored on appeal? Minister, this is an important issue. Again, I'd like to commend you for coming into the House and taking the question, but conditions like autism spectrum disorder, ADHD are lifelong conditions, and they cause severe stress in families. It's very difficult for families to deal with that, and I think the removal of a medical card adds very much and compounds that at this already very difficult time for people across our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cahirley, and I'd like to thank Deputy McNamara for raising this matter. Budget 2013 introduced some amendments to the medical card GP visit card guidelines for those under 70 and for the over 70s. But notwithstanding that, there have been no changes to the schemes that would impact in the way that the Deputy has now told the House in any way on such a specific group of children. There is no change made that would have such an impact. I understand that the Deputy has referenced instances where, when attending a pharmacy, for example, persons have been advised that the medical card for some children with certain conditions have expired and that reapplication is required. That essentially is the issue that the Deputy raises. I have to say, Cahirley, that I am very surprised, indeed very concerned, that this situation, as it has been outlined by the Deputy, could arise. I know that very standard and uniform processes apply and are required to apply at renewal of a medical card, and I'd like firstly just to outline these briefly to the Deputy and to the House. The medical card scheme is operated by the Primary Care Reimbursement Service, the PCRS, referred to by Deputy McNamara. Since the centralisation of the medical card scheme and the PCRS, every medical card shows an expiry date before which the eligibility of the holder is reassessed by the PCRS. A letter issues to the medical card holder 3 months before the expiry date, and again 1 month before the expiry date. Once reviewed and eligibility confirmed, the card is renewed. A medical card remains valid irrespective of the expiry date shown on the card once the medical card holder is genuinely engaging with the PCRS review process. The medical card holder does not need to take any action other than genuinely to cooperate with the review process and communicate with the PCRS on an ongoing basis throughout any review that may be taking place. Eligibility can be confirmed by any doctor or pharmacist through the GP practice or pharmacy IT systems, or by medical card holders themselves online at the website www.medicalcard.ie, though of course except that not everybody is online, but that facility is available. This means that a person can continue to receive drugs and GP services while they await a decision on their medical card renewal application by simply using the medical card number. While under the provisions of the relevant legislation there is no automatic entitlement to a medical card for a person with a specific illness, there is provision for discretion by the HSE to grant a medical card where a person's income exceeds the income guidelines. The HSE takes a person's social and medical issues into account in determining whether or not undue hardship, which is the phrase in the Act, exists for a person in providing a health service for themselves or his or her dependents. And I do think it's important just to stress again, clearly, that the medical card system is founded on this question, or this test of undue hardship. The basic infrastructure of the medical card system is that they are allocated to people on the basis of material circumstances and not on the basis of an illness, any particular illness. Although there is the discretionary system, which is an exception to that general rule. But the general rule is that we allocate medical cards on the basis of material means, which is this phrase undue hardship in the Act back to 1970. I understand that the cards referred to by the Deputy are discretionary medical cards. I think that must be so. On average, discretionary cards are valid for 2 to 3 years, and the renewal processes that I have outlined earlier also apply for discretionary cards. So people should not be getting out of the blue statements, either from pharmacists or anybody else, to the effect that your medical card is gone, and that this is the first the person heard of it. That I'd be most, and I am most concerned to hear that that this is occurring in the manner that's being suggested. I have no doubt the Deputy, in raising it here, is doing so on the basis of information that he has. Even for the shorter-term discretionary cards, 6 months or 1 year, they will receive a renewal notice 3 months in advance of the stated expiry date. In setting review dates and to avoid causing anxiety, the HSE will be sensitive, and must be sensitive, and are sensitive, so far as I can see, to the needs and conditions of the individual. The target turnaround time for discretionary medical cards is 20 working days. Having said all that clearly, if the Deputy has specific cases which he would like to see examined, the PCRS will be willing to do so, and if the Deputy needs any assistance in that regard, I'll be happy to afford it.
Deputy, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive reply. It will come as a considerable relief to me, and more importantly, I hope it's a relief to my constituents, because, as I say, I am a TD at Chop the Dáil, and I am bringing this message to the Dáil that this is an issue which has arisen in my constituency. It may well be a localised problem, it may well be due to a systems failure, but I am satisfied with the Minister's reply, and if the problem persists, I will of course be taking up the answer with the PCRS as the Minister has advised, and if that fails, I'll bring it back to the Minister.